Hey Ultraman Card Game fans, today we'll be talking about the Alien Baltan deck, which has invaded our X week. We've become Baltan week, and if you're looking at any of the reports in Japan, this deck is definitely making the rounds, dominating Galaxy Cups, and is a much greater menace than I think anyone would have originally imagined. Originally, I would have thought of this as like a fun meme deck. You know, you have 25, 25 Baltons, you're all running the same card, and you had some very neat little BP grade bumps that would, or BP point bumps that would increase for every Balton you had on the field. So you'd end up getting bigger and bigger numbers as Baltons took over. So actually, when you start playing with this deck, though, you realize that this deck is actually really terrifying with what it does. So just a quick recap. We have the BP3 Balton, this double rare that will let you mill 3 cards, and then for every Kaiju that's shown in both the 3 cards you mill and the 3 cards your opponent's deck mills, this gets plus 1000, making it either, in this deck, at the worst, 915, but can go up to 1017 if your opponent is running like a Kaiju heavy deck as well. But I think this box topper from BP4 is really the thing that ties everything together. So with this activate, you can exile 3 Baltons from your discard and select one of your Alien Baltons and give it plus 1000 BP for every Balton you have. So what this means is if you're running this only Balton deck, if you're doing a bump on turn 3 for one of these Baltons and assuming they're both 15k, that means on turn 3 you're able to create an 18k lane. On turn 4 you can make a 19k lane, and turn 5 you're making a 20k lane. So pretty much any lane you're bumping with this Balton is going to more or less win that lane. It's very difficult to beat 20k on turn 5 and then 19k on turn 4. So definitely terrifying. But I think when you start playing the deck carefully and putting everything together, this is where the deck gets crazy. So just to get started, you can make a very split 50-50 build where you have your 4 Balton level 5s. This one you can discard a card from your hand to draw another card. You've got your 4 copies of the milling 3 double R Balton, and then you can just do 21 and 21. That will pretty much get you a starter Balton deck. Of course, the box toppers, you'll need to open a lot of boxes or buy them. Promo Baltons, you'll need to go to a lot of events or acquire them other ways. Buying around, looking if anyone you know has them. I think even actually between Durian and I, we've had to pull together all the events we've gone to try and get as many Baltons as we can. Same for the box toppers. So you're able to put together a 50 card Balton deck. Nice thing is you only have 4 cards to play from. So this is what a Balton field would look like. So how do you play the Balton deck? So key things, whatever you have in your hand, you really want one of these. This is the thing that gets your mills going to get cards in your discard for exiling. So turn 1, I would actually say, uh, you pretty much just play the level 5 Balton. By turn 2 or 3, you can play the mill Balton. Like this could be a turn 3 board, and you're actually very unlikely to lose the game because you can bump this lane to 18k, and unless your opponent has a way to beat 18k in this lane, you should survive turn 3. Um, if you're playing Balton from the next player, you can actually choose to level up whichever lane you need. That should keep you in the game. So if your opponent's taking lead on turn 3 and your board looks like 3 level 5 Baltons, play the one that will keep you in the game. If you need to deny them lead because they have a very powerful turn 3 scene, you can play him here. This becomes 18k, should be able to keep you in the game. Otherwise, they have a big lane in lane 1 that's going to be 17k. You could play this. You're able to win that lane from 18k, and you're pretty much safe for turn 3. You can always also level up a second Balton, and now you have 2 options that could become 18k. So you should be able to find one of these that can win the game. It's not very often that your opponent will be able to beat 18k on 2 different lanes for turn 3. Because remember, since it's activate, you can pick whichever one you want to level up. So what your turn 4 might look like is then you play another 4th Balton. With this effect, you're only milling 3 cards every turn, so you pretty much only expect to do 1 bump. It is possible to stockpile bumps if you have a turn where you mill 3 and you don't need to level up or use the bump. you have 3 extra cards in your discard that you can now do 2 bumps on turn 4. Or you can do 1 bump on turn 4, and you can do something like this. And again, you should be safe. Because if you want to look at it this way, right, you have 3 lanes that are 15k effectively. So your opponent would have to be able to beat all 3 of these lanes for them to win the game. If they're losing even just one of these 3 lanes, what you can do is you take the Baltan effect, bump this to 19k on turn 4. This is maybe winning against the 1-2 or 2-3 double turn 4 with 15k. And you have at least 2 lanes that aren't losing, you're in the game, and you go to the turn 5, which is the scariest turn playing against Baltan. So now you can then do something like this, where you play your 5th Baltan, and depending on if you have extra cards you've milled, just like before, you could in theory do 2 bumps, or if you only have the 1, you can still do a level up somewhere. And now your opponent has to be winning many of these lanes to stay in the game. So this is your ideal board state, where you have either 4 Baltans and a level 5, or you have 3 Baltans and a level 5. With this board, you're hoping that one of these 3 Baltans wins naturally, and then you bump the other 2 to 20k, which very difficult to beat. Or with this board, you have 4 Baltans that are 15k doubles, and you're hoping that just one of these win the game, and then you'll bump the last one to a 20k, which should ideally win. And the scary thing is that if you're playing Baltan as an next player and you do it carefully, you can change which Baltan is your bumping lane and which Baltans are your winning lanes. So unless your opponent is able to beat 15k in every lane, it's very difficult for them to come back from this situation. Now, while there are decks that can do that, Rosa Blue has a lot of BP grade up-down effects that can help them get there. Omega similarly has a lot of BP grade increases that can get them to 15k in multiple lanes. It is actually still fairly difficult for most hands and most decks to actually beat this. If you're going against an Arc deck, they typically have really big triples in lanes 1, 2, 3, but then you should be able to beat their later lanes just by playing doubles. And with this, then here, you're able to bump this to 20k. That'll beat their starter deck Arc. These 2 can win just with 15ks, and then you should win the game. So pretty simple, but very devastating, seeing how Baltan can just adapt to your opponent's playstyle and win the game. So this is pretty much the Baltan deck in a nutshell. Now, what I've been experimenting with is, so if this is your ideal board state, if you actually look here, I have 5 of the level 5 Baltans and only 2 of the promos needed, because you're always going to need this one. So I've actually been experimenting with something like 18 of those and 24 of these. Pretty much you want to have more of the box toppers. I feel like this will give you more odds of getting this ideal board state. If you have a hand where you have many of these and not enough level 5s, then you're going to be in awkward positions where now you're playing things like this, and now you have a 10k lane that you can bump only up to 15k, and it's not even going to be able to bump other lanes. So this is pretty much the Baltan deck. Let us know in the comments what you think. Definitely, we can already see that in Japan, this deck probably has the highest win rate in terms of Galaxy Cup wins and top 4 placements. So terrifying deck. Use this Baltan week where we showed some ideal matchups where you can in fact beat Baltan. It's not invincible, even with their ideal hand. If you have the right amount of BP grade ups and you're able to beat 15k in every lane, it is possible to beat. That being said, this deck is terrifying, so hopefully you've acknowledged it as a real threat, and then look at how you can best beat this deck if you end up with the misfortune of playing against it. Thanks everyone, and this is the Alien Baltan deck. 24 copies of the box topper, 4 of these level 5 Baltans, 4 of the level 3 Baltan, and 18k of the promo level 6 Baltan. Thank you.